Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
A political act drawing massive crowds comes to Colorado today. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have teamed up on a tour of western states to push back against Trump policies. Organizers expect more than 50,000 people between two rallies today in Greeley and in downtown Denver. The weather is expected to cooperate, but traffic could get snarled. I'm Bazi Kanani. Coming up, Colorado families are bracing for impact from Trump's order to close the Department of Education.
A lot of the tribal children in my area rely on those services.
Then, Denver is bucking a national population trend. And
kids should have exposure to all kinds of literature.
What a judge had to say about that. Plus, Cinderella hopefuls come to town. It's Friday, March 21st. Here's the news in Colorado today. There may be little left of the Federal Department of Education after President Trump's executive order yesterday directing his education secretary to close it. This latest move has Colorado parents like Sarah Collins worried.
A lot of the tribal children in my area rely on those services and those accommodations, and they will be affected not only through special education services, but it's going to affect our transportation. It's going to affect free lunches for these students. It's going to affect a lot of the parents to accommodate what's going to be missing in their child's educational services.
Trump's executive order says services, programs, and benefits that Americans rely on should not be interrupted. But that may not be likely. Nearly half of the Department of Education staff has already been cut, and more cuts are on the way. Joining us is Emily Harvey, who has pursued many civil rights education cases with Disability Law Colorado. Emily, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Collins, the mom we just heard from there, is a board member with your organization and lives on the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation in the Four Corners area. She's anxious about whether her child will get the support he needs. He has autism spectrum disorder, so he has a network of therapists and a special education teacher to help. If more cuts are made, his mom fears that his strict education regimen will change.
I would like for him to have professionals around him that know how to regulate him.
Emily, you're an attorney. Do kids like Collins have a legal right to those services? And what happens if they get cut?
Yeah, they absolutely have a right to these services under Section 504, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which are all federal laws. They also have rights under state law. And if these services get cut, kids are going to fall behind, and it's going to be kind of like what we saw in COVID with learning loss for these students with disabilities who no longer get these services.
Your organization has called on state and federal leaders to protect the rights of students with disabilities from what is described as a reckless decision by the Trump administration. What do you mean by that?
They cut more than half of the regional offices of the Office for Civil Rights at the Department of Education. This means that for Coloradans, the Denver regional office, which previously looked at complaints from 5 states, is now responsible for 13 states, none of which border Colorado. The number of open investigations in the Denver regional office in January was 628. They have now subsumed over 2,200 additional open investigations from the other offices that were shuttered that they're now taking on the work for. Additionally, the staff in the Denver office, they've lost a third of their staff. So there aren't the people there to do the enforcement work.
Another group called Ready Colorado is supportive of the cuts at the Department of Education. Its leader, Brenda DeConer, said she agrees that statutory funding for students should be maintained, but she said, quote, "Our goal is driving dollars into the classroom and reducing administrative staff." What do you say to that argument?
Yeah, I agree that we need to cut administrative costs and spend more money on serving children. These cuts don't necessarily directly transfer in that way. The money would have to be reallocated by Congress to directly serve students. And these cuts were not made with an eye towards actual people who weren't doing their jobs well or, staff who weren't performing. They just went in and cut more than half the regional offices and all of their staff, regardless of whether they were high performers, low performers. It's hard for me to think that that was the goal with these cuts.
Emily Harvey with Disability Law Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colorado's population is still growing, and our capital city, Denver, is bucking a national trend. U.S. Census data shows that while many other major cities like New York and Los Angeles lost residents in recent years, more people moved to Denver and to other Colorado cities. CPR's Haley May looked into the numbers. Haley, where is Colorado seeing the most growth?
Well, Bazzi, in 2020, just like everywhere else, Denver did lose some residents. But since then, most of our cities, including Greeley and Fort Collins in the north, Colorado Springs and Pueblo in the south, and Grand Junction on the western slope have all seen population increases.
It's pretty spread out.
Yes. In fact, the only city that's seen a decrease is Boulder, and that's small, less than 1%. Now, the largest growth in terms of percentage is up in Greeley. They're up 12% since 2020.
Wow.
But the largest increase in terms of people is definitely still the Denver metro area. It's made up of 6 surrounding counties, and it's added more than 80,000 people since the pandemic.
Well, we know that Denver's a beautiful place. Clearly, the word has gotten out, and Denver has seen tremendous growth for many years now. What is driving this recent increase?
Well, a big part of it is international migration, with about 56,000 migrants arriving in the metro. But there's definitely more to the story. The state demographer says the city's worked hard to attract people in their 20s and 30s by marketing the outdoor lifestyle and opportunities. It's definitely worked.
It has.
But the ripple effect of that, more young people moving in means more babies. And now the metro's birth rate is outpacing the death rate, and that's also helped growth.
Is our growth expected to continue?
Yes, according to the state demographer, the metro specifically is on track to continue growing, but where exactly that growth happens is what could change. Jefferson County, for example, has an aging population, and it's the only one of the 6 metro counties that's shrunk. Douglas County has gained the most people. It's up by 36,000. And Denver proper is a little more modest. It's got about 11,000 new residents.
Haley May, thank you.
Thank you.
Some banned books must go back on library shelves at a local school district. That's the order that came this week from a federal judge in a case against the Elizabeth School District in Elbert County. Last summer, just before kids returned to classes, the school board voted to remove 19 books. CPR's Molly Cruz is covering this story. Molly, what did the judge say?
So the U.S. District Court judge granted a preliminary injunction, which basically means those 19 books have to be returned while the case continues through the legal system. The judge said that the district can't remove any more books just because it disagrees with the views expressed in them or just to further the board members' political preferences or religious ideology.
So at this point, it sounds like the judge has sided with the plaintiffs. Who are they?
Yeah, the lawsuit was filed in December by the ACLU. They are representing 2 students in the Elizabeth School District, as well as the Rocky Mountain NAACP and the Authors Guild, which is a national writers group. So the ACLU says this book ban is a violation of constitutionally protected speech.
Kids should have exposure to all kinds of literature, all kinds of books, all kinds of ideas. That's what makes our country strong, and it's what makes kids interested in learning. And so our clients felt very strongly that the school district unfairly targeted people that didn't look like them or didn't think like them.
That's Tim McDonald, the legal director of the ACLU. Some of the 19 books banned include Beloved and the Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas, and #Pride Championing LGBTQ Rights by Rebecca Felix.
Several of those are well-known and award-winning books. How has the school district reacted to this ruling against its book ban?
So I spoke with the superintendent, Dan Snowberger, and he told me in a statement that the district is disappointed and they plan to appeal. He said the books that were removed were decided on in a, quote, careful and transparent process. He told me it involved a curriculum review committee which included parents and community members of the school district. And he also continued to deny that banning these books is political, saying the board stands by their decision to remove content that is sexually explicit and age inappropriate.
I imagine there are a lot of people watching this case and that its outcome could affect whether some other Colorado school boards might decide to pursue their own book bans.
Exactly. After today's decision, that's exactly what the ACLU is hoping for. They want it to dissuade other school districts from trying to ban books. Now, again, the school district says it will appeal the injunction, so this case is going to continue. So that means there's a possibility that there could be a different outcome about if this type of book policy is legal.
We'll continue to follow this. Thanks, Molly.
Thanks, Bozzy.
It's March, and for college basketball fans like Jim Driscoll, hope springs eternal.
I think the Grizz are scrappy. We're always underrated. We're always going to be the underdogs.
Thousands of people descended on Denver yesterday to catch the first round of the men's NCAA tournament. Ball Arena will host 6 games between Thursday and Saturday, including matchups between basketball blue bloods like Michigan and Wisconsin versus underdogs like Montana and UC San Diego, the Tritons. That's Jamie Hurst's alma mater.
I had a buddy from high school text me out of nowhere today. He goes, how far do you have him going? I said, well, I have him in the second round for sure. And he goes, just because it's your boys, like it's your squad? And I said, no, because I actually think they have a chance here.
Over the next 3 weeks, Cinderella stories will be written, and one of those could come from our own backyard.
Let's call it excitement, not nervousness. This is our third trip in 4 years, and I've been blessed to be a part of the last 2 of them.
John Weber is the athletic director at Colorado State University.
We would have loved to have played in Denver, obviously, in front of our own fans and our own state, but we're happy to be here. We're excited to be here and looking forward to the game.
Weber said he doesn't put a lot of stock in predictions from the sports pundits, but the Rams are gaining steam as a fashionable upset pick in the tournament's first round.
I expect to see a whole lot of green and gold in the arena. There's a lot of alumni up in the Seattle area, and I think we're going to have a good turnout.
The CSU Rams, a 12 seed, will take on the 5th-seeded University of Memphis Tigers. That's in Seattle today. The game tips off at noon Mountain Time. If you want to hear the full interview with John Weber, you can find it in the Colorado Matters podcast. Additional reporting for today's show came from CPR's Joe Erickson, Tony Gorman, Anthony Cotton, and Denverite's Andrew Kenny. Thanks to Alejandro Alonso Galva for editing, and thanks to listeners like you who make this show possible. Be sure to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app and leave a review if you get the chance. Have a great weekend. I'm Bozzy Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where pharmacists can fill your pet's prescriptions, helping you pamper and protect your pet with pills, peanut butter, toys, and treats. Stop into the store today or visit Safeway.com.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.